BTS is back with a new album, and of course I'm gonna have a lot of thoughts and feelings about that. If you're a long-time watcher of this channel, you'll remember the video of putting up my BTS wall that I did during my university time at one point. That bookshelf over there just mostly has all of my BTS albums, my ARMY membership box. Like, I've been a long-time fan. Now, I don't think you should have to always preamble a video like this by saying it's all coming from a place of love, but it truly is. BTS means a lot to me. They helped me through some of my darkest times. I've been a long-time fan, and for that I'll always have some love for them, even if there are bits in the discography that maybe don't vibe with me at all times. Today I want to talk about the new album, and again, I just want to say it's coming from a place of love. This is my opinion. This is definitely not fact, and it will be different for everyone. Music is so individual, as it should be. I actually really don't think there is very much of a measure in music of this is arguably like crap music versus this is arguably good music. It just depends on what you like, what mood you're in. For me, some music that I'm not a big fan of in one moment, the next moment when I'm just in a different emotional space, I totally vibe with. So all of that plays into this, right? I'm currently in a stage of my life where I maybe vibe with certain type of music more than I did 5 years ago. So that will change how I look at old music versus new music. That being said, I have always been one of those people who was like, oh, I love the early BTS stuff. Like, it's so good. And while I also love some of the newer stuff, the old stuff really is where it's at for me. Obviously, BTS has gone through a huge transition during their career, being initially focused fully on Korea and then going towards the West and being very US influenced and focused. And I think that's very apparent on this album, and we're gonna dive into that. So this morning I woke up very, very, very excited. Of course, immediately watched the Swim music video and listened to that first, and then listened to the entire album. I have to put my hands up and say I've done 2 run-throughs of the album at this point. Sometimes music takes a few more listens. That being said, a lot of BTS music for me doesn't. I've had a lot of music with them where I've immediately kind of connected to it and related to it. Those usually tend to be the songs or albums that I also keep coming back to as the years have gone on. This album is not quite that for me. So just to get some things out of the way before I deep dive into the album and my thoughts on it, my opinions on it, here are some of the main bits that I have in my brain about the album. It is clear that this album has a big US influence. Michael made it as a producer, is all over this album. It's apparent in the production. It's clear that they have a lot of influence from the US, not necessarily a negative thing. There's a lot of really good music that comes out of the US. It's just quite different maybe to how it used to be. I think that's quite apparent as well because they obviously had their solo careers and some of them lent more into the Western style. If you look at Jungkook with tracks like 7, which I really like that track. I think it's different to what we hear on this album. I think it's an example of where the more Western influence is done well. Here there were moments where I thought maybe it wasn't done as well. I think I'm starting to vibe more with the second half of the album rather than the first, but we'll dive into that. I felt like there was a lot of overproduction on this album. There's a lot of intentional, distortion on vocals, auto-tuning of vocals, and while I don't mind that, that definitely has a place for me. The thing I love about BTS so much is that they have these unique individual sounds, but when they come together, it's like they produce magic. But I lost the kind of unique individualness of them as members in this album personally. There were moments where I honestly wasn't sure whether Jin was singing on the track or not. Jimin and Jungkook have such unique vocal tones that you usually make them out pretty easily, and so does Taehyung, but I feel like they underutilized his unique tone in this album. He has quite a different tone to the rest of the group. It's very jazzy, and I don't think it was used in the best way, personally. While there are lyrics that are more personal, I felt like overall the album isn't as personal as it could be and as previous albums have been. And I think at times the songs have a lack of structure, a bit of a lack of a beautiful bridge or a pre-chorus or a verse that goes into XYZ, which I just love that in songs. But I could say the same about some of the new Enhypen songs, which just they've said goodbye to bridges. I don't know why, but I tend to still really like a lot of their new stuff. But let's not get into that. That's a very emotional topic right now. The whole body of work has a very clear, in my opinion, connection to the Dark and Wild album that came out very early in their career, which actually is one of my favorite albums. So I want to do a bit of a track side-by-side comparison. They have the same amount of tracks. Both albums consist of 14 tracks, and so I thought it'd be nice to kind of look at one and the other and just not a comparison of this is good, this is bad, but just how do things differ when I feel like that's the album that this is most inspired by, if you will, or I feel like sonically maybe it's the one that it's supposed to be closest to. P-Dog was the main producer on the Dark and Wild album, and he also does show up on this album, I think, a little bit more towards the second half, which I think is purposeful because that is supposed to be more of a callback, I feel like, to old school BTS, but I think the whole album is a bit of a callback to old school BTS, but let's dive into it. I'm gonna go a little bit track by track and just give my thoughts. This isn't like a deep dive into each track and what all of it means and how everything was produced. This is just my thoughts. I've got my screen here, so I'm looking at like kind of both tracks at the same time. Also, I probably won't insert any snippets, unfortunately, of the songs here, just because I think it will get absolutely copyrighted straight away. So just have the tracks like next to you maybe and listen to them alongside if you want to like fully dive into what I'm thinking. So we start the new album with Body to Body. I like this as an opener. I don't think it's a weak opener for the album. I do think I particularly love the outro of it. It felt very, very BTS. It had some callbacks, I feel, to like the sound of Idol. And to me, that part made me understand why the album is called Arirang. I then lost that understanding very quickly as the rest of the album went on, unfortunately. So for those of you who don't know, Arirang is like a traditional Korean folk song, and it's sung a lot, and it's kind of like the unofficial national anthem of the country. I'm pretty sure Jungkook has sang it a few times, and so when I saw that that was the title of the album, I was like, sick, we're gonna go back to not just their Korean roots, but musically and sonically, we're gonna maybe go back to some of that as well. When I take that understanding of the album and then what the album sounds like, it feels mismatched to me. To me, it feels mismatched. I don't quite think that my expectation, which maybe was wrong, but my expectation of that title of the album meets the result product of the album. That being said, Body to Body I do think is a cool track. I think it's gonna look really cool live, especially the outro part of it, which I think will be really cool. Now, if we compare it to the Dark and Wild album, that album starts with the intro, What Am I to You? So that would be like the comparison of the two songs. Then we go to the second song on the album, which is Hooligan, which would be Danger on Dark and Wild. Now, I think it's pretty difficult to compare something to Danger because it's such a banger of a track. In my opinion, I think it's so good. Desperately want to do a dance cover of that. For those of you who don't know, I'm a K-pop cover dancer in London. I do that on the weekends and after work, so I desperately want to do one of Danger. Here are my thoughts on Hooligan. I'm aware there's a large chunk on TikTok that is in love with this song. I think the production initially, I was like, oh, cool, this is kind of like different, this is funky, I like it. That being said, I think this is a song that needs the performance. It needs the stage presence. It needs that upbeat vibe. I woke up this morning, I was a bit in of a daze. Maybe I wasn't in the right mindset to listen to the song. I'm sure when it hits like 11 p.m. and I've had a few drinks, this song will feel different to me. But there are a lot of BTS songs that are uplifted by their performance, but they don't need the performance. The songs stand out on their own. For me, this song doesn't quite have that. I feel like it will need the performance, and I think that will bring the whole vision together, which it's a part and an aspect of K-pop. I think it's so cool, this entire performance aspect, right? Otherwise I wouldn't be doing K-pop dance covers here in London. It's just that I feel like this song maybe relies on it a little too much. I do think the performance will have really fun like fan interactions with like ha 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 ha. I think that'll be really fun. But if I compare it to a song like Danger, it just doesn't hit in the same way. Danger has like a huge impact and also works really well from a stage presence perspective, but it stands out on its own. It's got really interesting production in it, little tidbits here and there when like J-Hope does the car honk and like you hear it. Like these are little touches that I think make a song unique and make BTS music unique, and that's what I'm missing in a lot of these songs. It starts off and then that's just your song. It starts and ends like in the same way. There's not much interesting stuff happening in the middle, in my opinion. Then we go to the track Aliens, which is where they talk about their differences and what defines them, but the fact that they have these differences is what defines their individuality as a group, which is quite interesting. It goes back to what I said at the beginning, right? They have this unique individuality that produces magic when brought together. It references kind of Korean cultural habits, and while I don't hate the song, it doesn't go anywhere really for me, and I understand the messaging, but it's not coming across as well to me. In comparison, this would be War of Hormone on the Dark and Wild album, which I know is a little bit controversial in the fan base from time to time, but if we put the controversy to the side for a minute and just look at it from kind of an impact of the song, like sonically and vocally perspective, it's just not quite the same. I don't know how to like explain it, but it just doesn't, the songs just don't have the same impact on me. War of Hormone has such an interesting opener as well, right? Really, really interesting, really strong, and then it hits you when like the rap comes in, and then the chorus with like the heavy kind of growly vocals of Taehyung, like it all comes together. They make use of Taehyung's vocals so well in that song. Don't feel like that's really happening in Aliens. Next up we have Fire, which I will say I think was like the first standout of the album to me. I didn't hate it. Not that I hated the previous songs, but I was kind of like, okay, I'm ready for something new. I think the outro of Body to Body saves that song in my opinion. And so by the time we got to track 4, Fire, I was like, okay, need something to like keep me going. That being said, there's this one lyric in Fire and I just can't get over it. And I'm so sad to report that because of that, I just can't take the song as seriously. The lyric is, and I've got it here, I want to read it out so I don't kind of like mess it up. The lyric is, "Club go crazy like Britney, baby, hit me with it one more time." This is what we've gotten to in terms of like lyric writing, which just makes me sad. And then if we compare it to the kind of accompanying song, if you will, in this comparison, which is Hip Hop Lover, we've got lyrics like, "I had so much to say that it wasn't enough with what other people told me. First I forced it layer after layer, calling it lyrics. And that was it. That was it when I became me. On the white paper in between my textbooks, I put myself, I erased it, emptied it. I was free on top of the beat." Do you see the difference in lyricism? This is where I'm struggling with the album, and especially a lyric like the Britney lyric where you then say, "So hit me with it one more time." It's so overdone. It's in so many other songs. It's so boring. What I do find interesting about this track is that they obviously have the Britney Spears mention, but Hip Hop Lover actually has a bunch of like references to other artists as well. I'm sure it's just a coincidence, but I find that quite fun that these two kind of sister songs, if you will, have that same idea running through it of talking about like other artists, even if in Fire it's just like one specific mention. Just thought I'd say that. And so while I do enjoy the beat of Fire, and I think it's like, it like keeps the album awake a little bit, that I found very disappointing, I can't lie. Then we go to the track 2.0, which the opposite of that would be Let Me Know on the Dark and Wild album. This is another Mike Will Made It track, and it talks about kind of like version 2.0 of BTS, the second coming of BTS. I don't know if they're hence trying to say that this album is representative of the entire new kind of trajectory of BTS. I kind of hope not, but again, it's their life, it's their music. They can obviously do what feels good and right to them. They don't have to abide by my opinion at all. I don't have much to say about the song. It doesn't do much for me. I don't think it's bad. I just also don't think it's exciting. Then we go to number 29, which is the interlude. So let's talk about the interlude. Let's talk about the idea behind the album, which I think this is the idea. Definitely not going to pretend like I was sat in the room when they thought up this idea. I think the idea is that the first half of the album is this one part of their persona, which is the more Western influenced style of music, and the second half of the album after the interlude is the more kind of going back to their old roots, maybe having a bit more of the emotional aspect to it as well. And this interlude is that bit in between. We hear the bells in the background. It's kind of like a come down, a calm down. I think that's the idea. I'm aware like I'm critiquing the album a lot, but for me, it doesn't really work. I realized this as soon as I heard the interlude. I was like, ooh, I wonder if we're now gonna get different type of music. We don't. It is different in a way, but it's not so massively different that it's like, yes, I can see completely different kind of producers on here and completely different like lyricism and sonically, and this feels a lot more BTS. That doesn't really happen for me. There are a few differences, but we still get a lot of the kind of overproduction, distortion on voices, a lot of the like same beats throughout the entire song. So there's not much change happening. I won't compare this to a song on the Dark and Wild album. It would be Rain, which I think would be unfair to compare it to. And so we get to Swim, which is obviously the single of the album. So the first time I listened to it as like a standalone. It was when I was watching the music video. I didn't listen to it in the context of the album. And then on my second listen, I listened to it within the entire context. And I want to give you my opinion on like both listens. When I first heard it, I was like, this is not a bad song. I wish it wasn't completely in English. Might be a weird opinion, but I don't feel like BTS has to cater to the Western audience that much. Why are they all in English? But then at the same time, if they want to do that, please go ahead and do it. If they feel now more comfortable writing fully in English, sure, but it doesn't really add much. If anything, for me, it takes away from who they are. Which is interesting that this is also the first song in the second half of the album, which is supposed to be more representative, I think, think of that side of BTS, yet it's a full English track. I found the track fine, I found it okay, but I didn't find it very interesting. But then when I listened to it in the entirety of the album, I understand why it's the single. I do think across the entire discography of this album, it's probably more of a standout. I did enjoy it more on the second listen as well. I find it quite peaceful. It almost has a bit of vibes of like Blue Side by J-Hope now that I'm thinking about it. I feel like overall the song has good production. I don't think it's overproduced. I could hear the different members singing. I could hear like the raps properly. I really like the music video. Lily Reinhardt looks great. The boys look great. So I see why it's the single that they've chosen to go with. This would sit alongside Cypher Part 3, which you really can't really compare the two songs. It's such a different song. It's obviously a complete rap line song on the Dark and Wild album, so I won't bother comparing the two, but it's just so you can kind of see where we're at in the album. And so then we go to Merry Go Round, which I've actually seen a little bit of like a discourse about on TikTok. Some people love it, some people really don't like it and don't vibe with it at all. I saw some people actively calling it out as the song they vibe with the least. I don't know if that's just my TikTok For You page, but let me know what you think. I wanted to go over a few of the lyrics that I saw in there that I thought were quite interesting. So the bits that kind of really spoke out to me were, I wish that I could tell you that it's over. I wish that I could walk away from the pain. My life is a broken roller coaster, but maybe I'm the only one to blame, which I found a little bit of a callback to the theme of Black Swan. Black Swan is all about falling out of love with music, and what if the first death or the real death of an artist is not physical death, but when they lose the love and passion for the thing that they're doing, music. This kind of felt like that a little bit as well, and felt like, okay, I'm feeling that turmoil, but I can't get off this merry-go-round. I can't get off the roller coaster. So while I find that quite interesting, there are two gripes I kind of have with the song. The first being that the merry-go-round idea and metaphor is very overdone. I think we hear it in a lot of music. I don't think it's an interesting way to relay that. Whereas the second point, Black Swan, such an interesting way to deal with that emotion and have that conversation, talking about an artist's death being separate from their physical death. Such a great concept. I remember when that came out, and when I fully started to understand what the song was about, I was like, yeah. And then I couldn't stop listening to it. As a musician and artist myself, that felt really like it resonated a lot with me. This song does not. And so because it feels a bit similar to Black Swan, not sonically, but I think the topic of conversation, I can't help but compare the two. And then Black Swan will come out on top, unfortunately, in that comparison. Now, if we compare it to what's on the Dark and Wild album, at this point we would be at Mohe, or What Are You Doing in English. Then we get to track 9, which is Normal. I get the message. I get what they're saying. They're saying that all their hardship, for them, it's like they call this shit normal, right? It's just what they're used to, but then also talking about, but how does it affect the non-artist side of themselves, the normal kind of grown-up men that live in, you know, in their apartments? How do they deal with all of these bits when there isn't that separation between artist and person? On Dark and Wild, we would compare this to Can You Turn Off Your Phone, which is such a fantastic track. It's a really fun, playful track. It's got great production, really interesting production. Again, not to like beat a dead horse, but such interesting production with like the cell phone sounds, the lyricism, the flow, and it's just missing from all of these songs in the new album. The song starts and ends the same way, but I won't say it again. I think you get the point of what my opinion on it is. Then we get to track 10, which is Like Animals, and it started off and I was like, yes, this is different. I like it just because we're doing something different. Not necessarily it's good or bad, it's just it's different. So I like that. But then the beat comes in and it's just basically the same thing again, in my opinion. Also, there's such heavy distortion in this track on the vocals, especially on Jimin's vocals, that it kind of just takes me out of the track. And so it's not necessarily like the message that's bad or anything, it's just the vocalization and the production behind it. I just couldn't really get on it. Who's this been produced by? This has been produced by Diplo, which that does then make a bit more sense. There's clearly a heavy, not just influence, but Diplo is actively on the production behind it, which explains why that's kind of sonically what it sounds like. It's just not quite right. And if we compare it to Blanket Kick, which is the kind of partner track on the Dark and Wild album, here we've got beautiful harmonies in the background, we've got such good rap flow, we've got really clean, clear production. Like I can hear everything they're saying, I can hear the like enunciation. It's just lost in Like Animals. It's completely gone. It does have a nice bridge, I will say, especially J-Hope's part in the bridge. It kind of starts off the bridge. I really like that. I'm a sucker for like quiet background music and just J-Hope's like pure clean vocals on top of it. I'm really happy that they also didn't over edit those vocals and distort them in the same way they did other vocals during the song, and we just hear some of that J-Hope classic like vocals. Then we go to track 11, They Don't Know About Us, which was produced by P-Dog. So P-Dog's making his first appearance as producer on the second half of the album here. The only song in the first half of the album that he's on is Body to Body, which makes sense to me. I assume it's for more of like the latter part of that song, and then he doesn't return until now, track They Don't Know About Us, track 11 on the second half, which is supposed to be more that callback to what they used to do and used to be like. I say that, by the way, from a producer standpoint. He did help write a few of the songs in the first half, just, you know, don't come for me, I am aware of the difference, but from a producer musical side, this is what the structure looks like. I don't have much to say about the song They Don't Know About Us. I, again, really like the opening, was really hopeful that would be something really, really interesting, but I just didn't have much interest in the rest of it. And if we compare it to 24/7 Equals Heaven on the Dark and Wild album, it's just not the same. It just doesn't hit the same. It just does not. Then we get to track 11, which is One More Night. And when it first started, I was like, oh, this is different. There's a hook. There's an actual hook in the song. But then the hook just continues for the entire song. Doesn't change. Again, we have that kind of monotonous like musicality of the song, which I like just wish it like they changed it up a little bit. It has this more groovy fantasy bones to it. It also has Diplo in the producing credits, but I think it's quite different to Like Animals. It does stand out more to me as a track, and I think that at least it's like different from the rest of the album, which makes me, again, I like it a little bit more. I find it a bit more interesting, but you really can't compare it to Look Here on Dark and Wild. I think that would be a very unfair comparison. That is such a track with, again, such great flow. I won't go into it. Also, before you comment it, I'm aware I can just listen to Dark and Wild if that's what I want to listen to. I'm not saying that, you know, both have to be of the exact same quality and whatever. It's fun to compare the two because I think sonically they're probably aligned the most in the discography of BTS. I'm aware that I can just choose not to listen to this album and to listen to Dark and Wild, which I probably will choose to do in some occasions. On other occasions, I will put on Hooligan and shake my ass to it, you know? Non-existent ass, of course, but we can try. Then we get to track 13, which is Please. It's a bit more chill. Very interestingly, it's also, I think, the only song that only has one producer. It's just Spry. It has the lowest amount of credits for writing. It's just Spry, Essene, Tedder, RM Sugar, and J-Hope. So it's very like kind of pulled back, and I actually think that works quite well. I think it's more emotional. I feel like it's a little bit more of like a fan song as well. I feel like it talks about both wanting to be together from like a group perspective, but also be back reunited with the fan base. And I think it works quite nicely. I don't want to compare it to songs like 2, 3, but I feel like that's the vibe behind it, that it's a bit more of like a fan song. I might be completely wrong. That's just the vibe I got from it. And then we have the final song of the album, which is Into the Sun. With quite a few BTS albums, I feel like the idea of the last song is to kind of also be the last song of the accompanying concert. So we've got songs like Microcosmos, We Are Bulletproof, Part 2, these types of songs that are meant to be played in an arena where you feel this overwhelming sense of like, oh, you just feel like big is all I can say. You feel big. You feel like there's this huge world and you're all here together, and it really brings you together and brings out that emotion. And I do feel like this song has elements of it that do that give you that big feeling. If we compare it to Dark and Wild, it would be the outro, Does That Make Sense?, which doesn't have that feeling, so it's different sonically. And that's a wrap up of the album. As I mentioned at the beginning, I think some of these songs will come alive even more when we see them being performed live. I'm so upset that I didn't manage to get concert tickets. I tried for about 3 hours on the actual day, and I've been trying every day to secure tickets, but I do think that spending £800 to sit at the back of Tottenham Spur Stadium is a bit of an oversell. Let me know your thoughts. As I said, I'm so open to dialogue. I want to talk to everyone about what they think, but let's just keep it nice. Let's keep it civil. These are opinions. These are not facts. And we're all here because we are BTS fans, right? And it's okay not to like everything that your favorite artist puts out. It's okay to be critical of certain things. I still know how much effort and blood, sweat and tears, no pun intended, they put into this album. I'm sure they're very, very proud of it. And that will shine during the performances. And that's, again, an aspect of BTS that's so fun, is to watch them perform and see the joy that they have while they perform. It makes it so much more enjoyable. What's your favorite track on the album? Which track do you not resonate with as much? Do you think there's another album in the BTS discography that this actually aligns closer to than Dark and Wild? Let me know in the comments below. All that being said, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day or start of the day whenever you're watching this. Thank you so much for watching this, and I'll see you in the next one.